It's a bit like Pride and Prejudice, except with a modern Muslim spin. Ayesha at Last is the debut novel from Uzma Jalaluddin. It's a romantic dramedy, yes, that's a real word, drama plus comedy, set in a close-knit Canadian Muslim community. Uzma Jalaluddin is here in studio with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
I really loved this book. I devoured it in like 2 days.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah, it's a great read, and I think great for younger Canadians who are reading this book. It can introduce them to a community that they have never met before. It's set in Toronto, in Scarborough. Tell me first why you wanted to write the novel.
Well, I'm a writer. I've always been a writer. And I think a lot of the writing actually came out of a deep love of reading as a child. And when I thought about the kind of story that I wanted to write, I definitely wanted to write something that was reflective of me, reflective of my experiences, but also really entertaining. So I wrote it in order to write a page turner, something that people would pick up and devour. I'm so happy that that happened with you. And I just wanted to write something that took a familiar story, like Pride and Prejudice, but then added a modern spin to it.
How many times have you read Pride and Prejudice?
I can't even count.
So how did it inspire the book for you? It's a classic story.
It is.
How did it play into the novel?
Well, it really is the sort of like the framing device that I use to introduce the reader to a community that they might not be familiar with. So the Toronto Muslim community is where it's set, but the main characters really mirror Pride and Prejudice. So you have Ayesha, who plays the Elizabeth Bennet character, and she is a spoken word poet. She's a substitute teacher. She lives with an extended family. So there's a bit of a modern sensibility about what life is like for young people. She wants to be an artist, but she also definitely has to try to get a day job that's stable, and so she goes into teaching. She has certain expectations from her family as well. And then Khalid is the Mr. Darcy character, and I sort of reimagined him as someone who was very pious and conservative and traditional, and is sort of grappling with issues of identity. And Mr. Darcy is known as someone very proud and judgmental, so I thought that would be interesting to put into a character like Khalid. So the idea for it sort of came about with trying to tell different types of stories.
I love the opportunity to answer a lot of questions that I've had about the Muslim community that they're not always easy conversations to have.
Right.
We live in a society where there's a lot of racial tension right now,
yes,
especially with the headlines we're seeing, and those conversations can be hard and uncomfortable sometimes. But this book beautifully sets up an explanation of a diverse culture, a diverse community within Toronto. Was that an intention you had going into the book, to be able to answer some of those questions people may have?
Definitely. I think one of the things that books really do, and as a reader who grew up reading all sorts of Canadian classics, from Gordon Corman to Ella Montgomery to Donald Jack to all sorts of different types of things, I think books are an excellent way to sort of have a conversation in a way that's very safe and comfortable. And a book like this, I wanted to write a comedy. I wanted to write a funny story about a community that oftentimes is maligned and misunderstood in the media. And I wanted to do it in a way that was really inclusive. And Jane Austen, one of the things that she does so well is provide a sort of inclusive, comfortable, comedic element to a story that has universal themes. I wanted to do the same thing.
Isn't it funny the way that words transcend time,
yeah,
right? That Jane Austen is relevant today with the Muslim community. Representation matters, we know this, and we were just having a conversation on the show about representation in Hollywood. Something beautiful about this book is Khalid, the character, is very traditional in his dress. For men who are growing up in the Muslim community, how important was it for you to give them a main character in a book who could look just like them?
Well, I think that's a really great point. And Khalid, the character of Khalid itself, he dresses in a very long white robe. He wears a white skull cap. He has a long beard. And I wanted to sort of deconstruct the idea of someone who, if you saw him walking down the street, he might seem intimidating or very foreign looking. And yet I used a dual person perspective. So you really get inside someone like Khalid's head. So you get a sense of what he's thinking. And most of the time he's thinking about, she's a really pretty girl. I think I'm in love. What do I do? How do I talk to her? Which is so relatable.
We all have those thoughts,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And you know, and he loves to cook. He's very close to his mother. He's close to his sister, and yet he has a strained relationship with his mother as well. So all things that we can think about. He is a bit of, I would say, he purposely dresses like a stereotype, and the majority of Muslim men definitely don't dress the way that he does. But there's so much emphasis, I think, on the female perspective, which is really important. Like, I'm a very visible Muslim woman, but I thought, we don't really see the other side. What about the very visible Muslim men? What are they thinking alongside the very visible Muslim women? So I wanted to provide that perspective.
I loved every second of the book. Uzma, thank
So
you
fantastic.
so much. You literally will laugh out loud reading this book. So pick up a copy. You won't regret it.
Thank